went and took a coffee break or whatever they did, but we're back at it.
Thank you all for your flexibility and for your time this evening. One thing that we want to accomplish through this presentation this evening is just to make sure that we all have the same base of information, not just those of you sitting here at the dais or behind me, but all of our constituents across the city. So we have a number of economic development partnerships. There are many moving parts to economic development. So why do we have these partnerships? What do you do all day? Kind of paint the picture a little bit. So just give everyone a little bit of an acquaintance with economic development and with our partners, introduce a little bit of our strategy. And luckily, my team of partners are very adept at rolling with it, so the little bit of time change doesn't faze them at all. So to start off, how do we define economic development? The U.S. Economic Development Administration defines economic development as creating the conditions for economic growth and improved quality of life by expanding the capacity of individuals, businesses, and communities to maximize the use of their talent and skills to support innovation, job creation, and private investment. So yes, I did read that to you, but that is the definition we're working with. And so why do communities invest in economic development? This is a nice little infographic here that talks about how we spend our money. So as a community, we invest in all of these little things in orange: the parks, infrastructure, public safety, housing, quality of life, and public employees. And me, as a public employee, I am part of the economic development team. We invest in partnerships with some of these fine ladies you see sitting behind me, who help bring new resources, help business owners, both existing and hopeful business owners, overcome barriers, and help all of us collaboratively use our strategic skills and plan for the future. In turn, that helps support our business community, which brings taxes and employment and makes our community a great place to live, work, and play. So that is why communities invest in economic development. Briefly, a few economic development best practice items that we just want to touch on. Asset-based community development, looking at what exists in the community and building upon that to find new opportunities, rather than seeking out the deficiencies and working on fixing the problems, right? These strategies are a focus on needs and our survival, not on the underlying issue. So we focus on positives and strengths, what is there we should build on, and a focus on needs implies that our communities are deficient. Maybe we're lacking something, but there's a whole lot in our community that's great. And there are some really good things that we can build on to strengthen our community and make it even stronger. Asset-based community development is also community-driven, internally focused. Really, it's kind of cliche, but we're competing with ourselves, right, to be the best version of Rock Island that we can be. Who are we? What resources do we have? What do we want, and how do we get it? A lot of our actions are also informed by the existing community plans that we have all put a lot of time and effort and thought into, as well as engaged with our community members. You may have heard this before, but economic development is a team sport. I know my friend Liz over here says that often. I was going to quote her, but I thought that might be silly. And luckily, we have a really great team. There are folks working on the national, state, regional, and local levels to help Rock Island be successful. Our little inverted pyramid, or Miles thinks of it as a spinning top. Some of the national organizations are the Economic Development Administration and HUD, Housing and Urban Development. State organizations, of course, we have the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. We have many other partners there. On a regional level, we have the BiState Regional Commission. We have the Quad Cities Chamber. We have Quad Cities SCORE, Visit Quad Cities. Locally, Rock Island Development Association, or City of Rock Island, excuse me, Development Association of Rock Island. We form a partnership that is our local economic development organization, or our LEDO. We have business district organizations, and hopefully we'll have a downtown placemaking organization soon. That's not me lobbying for anything, but just saying there's a lot that goes into economic development, and you cannot be the expert in all of it, right? That's why teamwork is so important. Business attraction, retention, and expansion. We have partners that work on that with us. Education and workforce training. Really, the colleges and universities are set up to do education very well. Workforce training, we have the Illinois Department of Employment Security that helps retrain and get folks back to work for new opportunities. We also have apprenticeships and other programs that are set up across the region and the state and nationwide. Science, technology, and infrastructure, environmental standards, small business development. Small businesses have much different needs than our larger, well-established corporations, and that may be something that you all know, but I just want to say that out loud again, because the technical assistance for a new business is somewhat labor-intensive to devote the time to someone that they truly deserve and help vet their idea, help them find the correct resources. Luckily, we have some great partners to help us do that. Physical infrastructure, the city, Mr. Bartels here brings lots of projects to you. Those don't just benefit the residents of the city, but they benefit our businesses and the people who work in those businesses. Sometimes the utility companies will even make upgrades. IDOT and our friend Denise here, BiState works really hard to keep us in line for funding from the Economic Development Authority and through transportation planning regionally. So economic development plans, the city, Dari, BiState, the Quad Cities Chamber, Visit Quad Cities has their placemaking efforts that they're working on. Export promotion, the state of Illinois and the Technical Procurement Center do that a lot. I don't have all of our partners on here because no one would be able to read it, but there was another attachment I sent along. I'm not sure if it made it onto the study session or not, but I went through and I pulled the mission statements from some of the organizations we work closely with so you can see how they align with the City of Rock Island mission. Okay. Now, partners are crucial. I think I've said that in one way or another more than once tonight already. But I'd like to give our partners a little opportunity to speak to you about the unique things that they bring to us through our partnerships with them. So first, we have Denise Bulat, the Executive Director of the BiState Regional Commission.
I don't think I need it, though. That's right. I think I have one slide. I thought I'd just give you a short summary of what BiState does from an economic development perspective. We do create a comprehensive economic development strategy, but I liked the way all of your diagrams showed all the partnerships and the fact that BiState pretty much intersects with infrastructure and with kind of quality of life things, more what your city does. So we write a lot of grants and applications and provide technical assistance that in part is funded from the Economic Development Administration and also helps us create an overarching plan that doesn't usurp your plans. All our member governments in our 5-county region and the municipalities have their own, many of them have their own plans, and in fact sometimes they ask BiState to write their plans for them. What we do is create an umbrella structure that we can then feed and communicate to the Federal Economic Development Administration and explain how all the overarching goals of the region really do align. And then we list your projects in that document, and then that makes them, it tees them up, if you will, for potential federal grants and state grants. So that's what the economic development strategy is done, and we update it every 5 years, but we report on it actually annually every year to the Economic Development Administration. We work with all these folks to gather the information that they do, because you notice on her diagrams, BiState doesn't do workforce development, BiState doesn't do marketing. We don't work directly with the small businesses, the small business development centers do. So we report on their activities through our documents and updates to the Economic Development Administration. The other thing that we do that was also funded from the Economic Development Administration was our Revolving Loan Fund. And the Revolving Loan Fund has worked with your CURLIF before and provided gap financing to businesses that retain or create jobs. They're not always small businesses. They can be. We've done very small businesses all the way to very large businesses. And we provide that gap financing at a lower interest, 75% of prime for 4 to 10 years, based on what we're providing the loan for. Usually it's equipment, and manufacturing equipment obviously has a useful life of more than 10 years, so we can provide up to a 10-year loan term at that point in time, and 4 years for working capital. We actually have a loan board, and you have an appointee to that loan board, and I believe that's Mr. Healy here. He has not had a chance to meet with us very much lately because we really, frankly, haven't had a lot of activity. I'm hoping that picks up now that unfortunately, the interest rates are inching up, so our loan program is going to become more attractive. And so I'm hoping that we start seeing some RLF activity. Some recent projects that have impacted Rock Island specifically before are Small Hands, Big Hearts, a very small child care facility, privately owned. They were one of our first revolving loans that we provided during the CARES Act, funding that we received for new capitalization. We also funded ALM positioners, and recently we funded CPI contractors, excuse me. Very small contracting company, but they needed some working capital because they'd had some hard times during the pandemic, a little less activity, and so we just funded that loan. So those are some examples of our loan programs, and that's my summary of our activities.
So brief but very important. Gap financing is provided through that revolving loan fund, and it helps projects stay viable. Sometimes you've bought the business, you've bought the equipment, but you need the money that you can actually hire somebody before you get those accounts payable coming in. So it's definitely a good thing to have access to, and we value it very highly. Next, we have Liz Tallman, the Vice President of the Development Association of Rock Island.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mayor. I was just here last month, so I'm going to try not to duplicate what I said last month. But as you know, we signed an agreement between the city and Dari in March of 2020, and we became what's really called a LEDO. Sometimes you hear that, Local Economic Development Organization, a public-private partnership where we're to serve as your point of contact with the economic development team, Tara and Stacy over here. And so we've structured this to be, it's been kind of broad, you know, in the sense that historically Dari has been what's considered a community and economic development organization. But what we've tried to do in the last couple of years is really focusing in on citywide economic development. And that's, for example, what I reported last month. We'll be back at the next council meeting to talk a little bit about next year's future. So with that, I just kind of want to go into the 3-year partnership. Really the idea of this was to get a one-stop shop, where we're working collaboratively as a team, where when an economic development prospect or a business needs help, they have one place to go, and that's what we've tried to achieve in the last 2.5-3 years. And what's really important to us is to be that local point of contact so that when someone calls in, we can help them, and that's what we truly have tried to achieve. And as I think all of you probably know this by now, that are 8 components of our work plan, and again, we base this on what the city council goals were at the time, what is Dari's mission, and then also the service agreement that was developed in partnership between the city and Dari, and came up with what are those 8 core things that we want to get done as it relates to economic development citywide. And so those are the 8. The first is business resources, and again, that's being able to be one location for business information and resources. What really came out of COVID, if you remember, I always say this, we signed the agreement on March 11, 2020, and COVID, everything shut down on March 13th. So what the number one thing between the city and this partnership was getting information and financial resources out to the businesses as it related to COVID. And so a lot of things were created at that time in addition to grants and funding sources that the city provided. But really it was an informational data platform called Forward. And so that has been kind of our data platform, continuing to talk about what resources are available for businesses, but it's also provided us an opportunity to develop a directory of businesses in Rock Island. We have over 850 businesses currently within the directory. And so some of the things that we are working on is trying to figure out what's that next generation. Now that COVID and other resources, we don't have as many listed there. What are those things that we could be doing with data and information? So, whoa. Oh, wait, sorry. So the next area is business development, probably where we spend the most of our time, and that is helping businesses when they want to grow or expand within the community. We have had, we provide technical assistance, or really anything from A to Z as far as what they might need to do business development and growth within Rock Island. We have currently, I think, 83 projects that we're working on or managing related to economic development. Right now, I mean, we have underway within the community, I think, over $65 million of investment that are going on within Rock Island. Like I said earlier, COVID, we probably spent more time with COVID-related assistance. I think last year we did $8 million in direct assistance to businesses. Right now, though, we have this investment by businesses who are really making, even during a pandemic, are making investments in Rock Island. I keep doing that, sorry. The business corridors, this is where we engage with corridors of commerce for development. 11th Street, College Hill, Hilltop, a lot of those were really kind of slowed down during COVID. Probably our most work that we've done has been within the 11th Street corridor and looking at some opportunities there. We have helped support the last 2 years the MLK family event, and what we did there is try to provide an opportunity for businesses to participate in that community event. On Friday, we have a 11th Street corridor ribbon cutting for Holy Grind, and I think all of you have received an invitation for that. So exciting things that are happening in the 11th Street corridor. The next area is product development, and that's where we enhance and promote availability of quality buildings and sites. That's what we talk about all the time. Okay, what do we have for sites for future development, and what do we have for buildings? And that's a lot of our work. And then also in relationship with what we do with the Quad City Chamber of having those buildings and sites available for any businesses are trying to either expand or locate here in Rock Island. The next area is housing. We don't really do housing, but what we do is we try to help promote housing programs and resources as it relates to quality of life. Our number one thing really is the Live Work Rock Island program, and that's really a workforce attraction tool. It's where we provide assistance for down payments for people who work with our particular work with Dari membership businesses, and they're locating in Rock Island. And I think to date we've had over $7 million, I think, in assistance, and 400 and some house closings in Rock Island. So that's new investment here in our community. And then again, financial assistance, that's a big area where we help to identify programs to help expand and grow in Rock Island, as I mentioned. Marketing and communication, this is really to increase awareness and promotion of Rock Island assets. And so I think our biggest area there has been the Why Rock Island campaign that I talked about last month. This last year, we had the opportunity to raise some funds, and we gave two $5,000 scholarships to Rock Island high school students, two high school students, and they put a video together of why Rock Island is a great place to live, grow up, and do business, and it's been very successful. We're going to do it again this year based on the golf outing proceeds that we just raised. Also, we have recently hired MediaLink to help us formulate some of our next generation of communication tools. As you may recall, on our website, we have a bunch of housing assistance guides, how to start a business, some of those kinds of things that can help in business development. But one of the other things that we really want to do is have a better presence in terms of social media, so we're working on a couple of those things. So the other thing is, in our core area is partnerships, and that's really developing and maintaining partnerships with key stakeholders. And of course I have to use this, Tara, economic development is a team sport. And up here, I just wanted to mention ALM project. Those are all the people who are involved in that particular project. And so it is critically, we're critically involved as a team, and everybody has a place and everybody has a role. And this is why we're very successful when you see all all of us here tonight. It's that we know how to work together. And in this particular project, it was the business, City of Rock Island, Development Association of Rock Island, Quad Cities Chamber, BiState Regional Commission, State of Illinois, financial institutions, and private investors. And so all of those different parties came together to really help this company grow. And so that's what it's really all about. So thank you for your time, and we sure appreciate all of our partnership and everything that you do for us in the economic development team.
Okay. My third partner this evening is Julie Forsyth, Senior Vice President of Business and Economic Growth with the Quad Cities Chamber.
Well, hi, everybody. Nice to meet you and see some of you. Mayor, Todd Council, great to be here. Wanted to provide an orientation to what we do at the Quad Cities Chamber with business and economic growth. So we're in the midst of a 4-year agreement for services for business and economic growth. This is year 2 of 4, which was renewed over a past 3. So up there is a photo of the full team. I'm just one here today. I lead our business and economic growth team. And so at a high level, we market the region. We are a lead generator. We do outreach for business attraction and business retention and expansion, and that happens in our 5 targeted industries. That's our focus. So that's manufacturing and defense, ag and food processing, warehouse distribution, and corporate office. And we have a sector-based approach. So from the left, Chris Caves does the manufacturing and defense, both for business attraction and business retention and expansion. Tammy does the other 3 sectors. And then off to my right in that photo, Janelle Wolber and Olivia Warren. They are a project management team. So as a lead generator, we have projects. So we move those projects through the process in partnership with all of our partners in the region. And so as a regional chamber and economic development organization, our service area is Rock Island County, Henry County, Mercer County. In Iowa, we have Scott, Muscatine, and Clinton County. So in terms of business attraction, we market the region. We let on the national stage, people or businesses know about the Quad Cities as a place to do business, to expand their business, or to relocate their business. And so we do that through both traditional and digital marketing. You probably will never see those ads because these are all outside the market. And these go very specifically to targets that we've determined within our primary industries. So again, focused on the 5 primary industries to let them know about the Quad Cities region as a place to do business. Lead generation, once we get those leads, we work the relationships, whether they're with a company or a site selector. Site selectors are consultants that are hired by companies to help them find a place to relocate to or expand to. So those relationships are where we focus a lot of our time. Those site selectors are the ones who help those companies make decisions. They want, as site selectors, they need to know what regions are good for what and all the assets, what makes a place important to be. So we help them as much as possible so that they can be really good in their role. Multiplier outreach, those site consultants can be multipliers, which means anybody that you talk to that can help somebody or a business get here is a lead. So we continue to have those multiplier relationships, and those would be with, for example, Intersect Illinois and DCEO. So Intersect Illinois, they're the lead business development organization for the state of Illinois, and they send leads to our region. And then from there, the chamber will work with our partners to put together an RFI submission, so a request for information submission. So those relationships, we continue to bring those folks into the region. We hosted Intersect Illinois and DCO this past year. We actually, Liz mentioning the ALM project, put some additional eyes on that and brought the those folks to ALM with Tara and Miles and Mayor being there for that visit. And then as far as site selectors, something that we did this year as well, as much as we can do advertising and tell people what it's like to be here, there's nothing like being on the ground. So we hosted a familiarization tour and brought in 4 national site consultants, took them around the Quad City region to see what it's like to be here, to do business here. We organized visits with business leaders, company presidents, to talk to them what it's like to do business here. We did the same with our public sector partners. I know that during that time frame, there was an opportunity for Miles and Tara to have individual conversations with those site selectors. So always trying to show the benefit of being in the region. I know that we also made a trip to Green Thumb Industries as a part of that tour. And again, trying to give them some example businesses that are in the region. And then project management, I mentioned that before. So again, we are the regional point of contact. So we manage those RFI submissions in partnership with our public sector partners. So those always come in as confidential and they're blinded, meaning we don't know the name of the company. We know maybe acres, how many square feet they're looking for, maybe the kinds of suppliers they want to be around. And so then we will work with our public sector partners to put together all the submissions that we possibly can to make us competitive as possible to that particular company. They always dictate what their criteria is, and we provide them all the options that fit their criteria within the region. If the leads are coming from the state of Illinois, Illinois is a service area. If the leads come in from the state of Iowa, then Iowa is the area that we look at. If it's coming from a site selector, it's open. So any locations and sites, and that's, again, Liz talked about product development. That's why it's so important to have, ideally, shovel-ready sites ready to go. So we coordinate that RFI submission process. If they're interested in coming in, we coordinate the site visit, again, in coordination with our partners. There's a lot of data collection and resource facilitation that happens along the way in terms of these potential projects. And then we also manage LOIS, which is a database, Location One Information System. It's available on our website. And the reason it's important to have that updated with all the available industrial sites and acreages is because that's where site selectors go, and that's where the states will go to look to see what's available in the region. So a lot of people try to make decisions about where to go. They use data first, and they'll go to your site before they'll even pick up the phone and talk to you. So Olivia and our team is responsible for making sure that that's as up to date as much as possible. And then the other thing that we do is we're out going to we go to trade shows, we will go to site selector conferences, we talk to site selectors. They let us know what's emerging in terms of trends, and so we communicate that with our partners as much as possible so that we, again, can be competitive as much as possible. So, for example, speed to market is huge. The faster that a company can get into the ground, the better off it is. That's something that they will make a decision as to whether they will come or not. And so, for example, permitting process. How fast is the permitting process? Things like this. These all are decision points for a company in terms of if they're going to be here. So we try to communicate those trends. Right now, we actually are working on, we have a targeted industry study underway. It's part of a match to a grant that we have. And through that study, we're looking at the industries of manufacturing and defense. We've already did about 2 years ago. So now we're looking at corporate office, warehouse distribution, and food processing to really look again at these industries, these subsectors, make sure that we understand this in relation to our region so that we, again, can be as competitive as possible. And we're targeting the right kind of companies where we can be competitive to get them here. Business retention and expansion, 80% of your economic development, that's what you always hear, 80-20 rule. 80% of it comes from your businesses that are here. So we lead our business retention and expansion outreach through the region. We work with our public sector partners to come up with the businesses, again, in those 5 targeted sectors that we visit. So we have conversations with them what's working, what's not working, what kind of plans do they have, what's standing in their way, who do they want to meet, who's a potential customer. And so we have those conversations, and sometimes we'll hear about the potential for an expansion project, sometimes not. It just depends, but we like to keep a pulse on a combination of our primary sectors because of the high-quality jobs that they have and the concentration of the companies in the region. We want to make sure that we understand how they're doing, again, because their employees are all throughout the region, and everybody wants their citizens working and able to be successful. So that is those visits sometimes will lead to projects, but they're definitely a good pulse on understanding business barriers, business trends. We do a lot of resource facilitation. The number one reason that businesses cannot expand is workforce. And so I'm sure that you've heard that. We do a lot of introductions to our workforce partners so that the companies can be active and understand every type of workforce resource and population out there that could be a employee for them. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, so you've heard my partners talk about the targeted industries or the primary industries. Briefly, the Quad City was named the #3 most diversified metro economy. We are in the Davenport, Rock Island, Moline Metropolitan Statistical Area. The MSA is what they call that. From a data level, you can find a lot of information. It may not be specific to Rock Island until you have someone who can synthesize that a little bit more directly, but if you're looking for us, you can find us in that MSA, and then 50 for U.S. In economic growth. Those 5 primary industries, just briefly, I'm going to tell you what those are a little bit more specifically. So advanced metals and manufacturing. On each slide, you'll notice some companies that are written in red instead of in black. Those are companies based upon conversations with Julie's team, with the team at Dari. Some of our conversations, even at BiState, help us identify companies that fit into these different sectors. But advanced metals, obviously Arconic is a big one here in the Quad Cities, but manufacturing too. You see we've got the Bedding Group. They make mattresses, pretty great looking mattresses actually, very comfortable. We went there. Agri-Solutions, they're doing some pretty innovative stuff in the kind of additive ag sector. Liberty Packaging literally takes big rolls of paper and makes it into any kind of cardboard box you can think of. It's really cool. McLaughlin, they do some pretty amazing assembly and welding and putting cabs together. Green Machine is a little bit smaller, but when Liz and I were out there, it just kind of blows your mind. The sort of things, you can go 1 block down the road, and we're doing so much here in Rock Island. It's pretty amazing. Agricultural innovation and food. There is a little bit of overlap in some of these. You see Agri-Solutions is on this list too, but really they're in the agricultural innovation sector because they are helping farmers be able to keep their chisels or their plows or their discs in the field longer. They have a machine that will harden the edges of those items so that if you have maybe a rocky terrain or some soil that hasn't been tilled for a while, you can keep going. Obviously, Wispac Pepsi, Bochi, who doesn't know Bochi's, right? But they manufacture mustard here in Rock Island. It's pretty great. Green Thumb Industries, growing and doing some science in the facility as well. Hill Valley Bakery, King Food Service, Mama Basso, Performance Food Group. How do we feed the world? How do we do that efficiently? And how do we make some specialty products along the way? Logistics. So logistics is kind of a nebulous thing, but all the ways you can move items, how do you make sure a business has what they need when they need it? And how do you get that to market as quickly and efficiently as possible? So you can see that we have quite a large presence in this sector here in Rock Island. We have everything from dorm transfer and warehousing. You can take it right off the rail, house it, break it apart, move it where it needs to go. We have Liberty Packaging that can make the box that you need to put that in, or Pack Source that can build the pallet to move that larger item and build it to spec. Defense, obviously the Rock Island Arsenal. I didn't put the Arsenal in red because we can't you know, it's not technically in Rock Island because it's on an island, but it's Rock Island, right? So we all know that. And then we have Mandus Group, right, down off the bridge. And they work very closely with the Arsenal to help keep our armed forces out of harm's way with the items they're working on currently. Corporate operations and support services, obviously you can look across the street and see Royal Neighbors. We have Modern Woodman, IMEG, Illinois Casualty, JTM Concepts, Valley Construction. We have some others too. This isn't comprehensive, but the larger kind of corporate office that you think of, that is something we do here in the Quad Cities and in Rock Island specifically. So why are those targeted industries important? Julie mentioned that, you know, knowing what we have helps us understand how we can attract other people. So those targeted industries are things that we do well here. Those businesses tend to employ larger numbers of people, so we need to make sure that we retain them here in the Quad Cities. Those businesses also support other businesses in our community. So one of the easy examples is John Deere, right? Everybody knows what John Deere does, but how many other businesses in the Quad Cities support what John Deere does? So many. I can't even go into listing them. But they're part of the supply chain or part of the logistics team that helps get those items across the world where they need to go. These employees of the businesses live and work in our communities. They spend money here. They help keep our hair salons, our bars, our restaurants, our little corner shops and our gas stations running. And that's why we focus and talk about the targeted industries a lot. But our strategy, as we're looking at economic development, so that's kind of a high-level thing, but let's drill down to Rock Island again. We want to retain the businesses that Rock Island already has, help Rock Island's businesses expand and grow, look for opportunities that are what we call right fit for Rock Island, right? Everybody would love to have a Trader Joe's, but are we the right place for Trader Joe's to locate? Do we have the right customer base? Do we have the right disposable income numbers? Do we have the right traffic counts? Do we have the right site? Do we have everything they need? And would they really be the right thing for our community? That's just an example, but that's kind of the process we go through with each business. If we locate another event center right across the street from our alderman's location, would that help him or would that hurt him? Are we building a niche or are we bringing competition in? You know, we need to think about that, because if we have 5 great event centers all in one space, can we market that as something that Rock Island really rocks and does well? Maybe Bill would see that differently. We don't know. But I liked this little graphic. Sustainable development is something we want to promote and we want to achieve, right? We don't want to bring something in that's so big we can't sustain it, or bring something in that's just not the right fit, because that company won't be happy, our citizens won't be happy, and ultimately we won't be happy because they're not happy here. So that's a real quick buzz through of the ecosystem in which we work for economic development. Hopefully you can see why my partners are absolutely critical to my ability to do my job and serve our citizens.
Very well done. Anybody got any questions? Well done, no questions.
Well,
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for your time and your indulgence this evening.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you for all the partnerships. It's wonderful. All right. We need a motion to adjourn here. Oh, we need a motion to adjourn till November 14th, 2022, 6:45 p.m. Don't move? That's fine.
Move to November.
It's basically moving to the general meeting, adjourn to the general meeting. Second. Roll call.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Hertz.
Aye.
Gilbert. Swanson. Parker.
Aye.
Poulos.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned until 6:45.
Thank you.